Right. Let me just clarify for the purposes of our viewers that this interview is being held on a Monday, and therefore when you talk about today's papers, they're talking about Monday. We might not necessarily air it on Monday.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Let's take the conversation somewhat at a tangent. I would like you to philosophize as a young political leader. And I think I use the word young with a certain reservation, but young in the fact that you're at least half my age.
Yeah.
So you and people like you represent the future. I tried to suggest earlier in sort of like camouflage terms that being Luo, you had no part in politics centered around central Kenya, and you denied that. Do you think that for your generation, ethnicity is going to disappear as the driving force of Kenyan politics?
Let me say this. It'll be dishonest for me to say that all the young people in this country are not tribal, because I have seen. Indeed, part of the reason that I sailed through to student leadership easily while at the University of Nairobi was the fact that no one could tell my tribe. So the Luos voted for me. The Luyas said I'm a Luya. Masais know Sakaja is a Masai name. And the Kalenjins and so on and so forth. There is...
So you're trying to suggest that maybe one of the ways to do it is to have a naming policy that doesn't make it absolutely clear that Sakaja is who he is.
No, I mean,
so I should change my name to Omiusu so that people would presume that I'm Nigerian. Is that your solution?
No, that is not the solution. The solution is, you see, I believe that the young people of this country are indeed our last frontier, our last line of defense when it comes to fighting tribalism. And it's because the young people are uniquely united by the same set of factors, as opposed to probably the earlier generations before us who, you know, apart from a few, who are shielded.
Young people where? Young people is a big, you know, I would come to a village expressly where everybody speaks my mother tongue.
But you see,
and they are united. This homogeneousness makes them tribal.
What I'm talking about actually is the unity amongst the young people.
In the urban areas as opposed
in
to...
the rural areas. I was in Kisumu 2 weeks ago, and I saw the young people there. And I saw the issues they have. I listened to them. Let me tell you, there's no difference between what they're going through with the young people in Nyeri, with the young people in Northeastern, in the Coast Province. It is unemployment, it is a lack of opportunities, it is disillusionment. And you see, once you're able to debunk the myths that have been there before and tell these young people, it is not that you don't have...
With respect, nobody is encouraging to see the commonality of experience. They are being to see as young people of Kisumu, young people of Kakamega.
And that is the work.
And that's the work of whom?
That is the work we have as leaders. Right. At whatever level, whether it is leaders in parliament, whether it is church leaders, whether it is leaders of community organizations, or even those youth leaders themselves. Because fighting tribalism is a role we all must play, including you in the media. Because you see, a lot of the stereotypes that had been held there before ossified this tribalism. That the reason why you don't have schools in your area is because others do. Whereas, to some extent, there could be some truths in terms of how development had been in the past. We have opportunities to equalize. We have devolution, which is an amazing thing. When you decentralize a lot of the fiscal issues and power, then no one will say that the reason you don't have development here is because of the people on the other side.
Intro, so many months into, we do not see devolution having a successful birth in the sense that it's going to be 28 billion shillings short. We have the leaders that we have having an unsuccessful birth, in that the first act that they want for themselves is to be paid almost double what's down on paper for them to have. You're saying that the young people are aware of this, and you as a young person are gratified and given a sense for hope?
Let me correct that. First of all, devolution is not underfunded. Indeed, if you look at the provisions of the Constitution, the President, or rather through Treasury, is supposed to set aside at least 15% of the revenue, of the last audited revenue, to the counties, to the county level of government. And if you look at what he has done, he actually gave 34%, 210 billion, to the counties. Now, if he did 16%, we would say devolution has started. If he gave 17%, we would say devolution has kicked off. But he gave 34%. So it is not, there's an issue, and people are saying that devolution is being fought. We must protect devolution. And there's all this, again, victim mentality that there is somebody who is against devolution, and we need to protect. We need to be the custodians and to shield Kenyans from those people.
But
it is not that.
This is part of the narrative being put across by our former Prime Minister Raila Odinga.
It is not true.
Who's the protector of it? I'm going, no stone unturned to protect devolution. So would you go on record as saying this is a political fabrication? There's nothing to defend.
It is a political fabrication, Jay. So I wish I came with a book I've written on devolution, because I've written about the operational framework for fiscal decentralization, and I did that 3 years ago. And you see, there are 4 factors that you need to look at when you talk about devolution. One is, what is the expenditure responsibility of the county level of government, or both levels of government? What is their function? Those are clearly outlined in the 4th schedule. Number 2, what are the revenue raising capabilities of these entities, these subnational entities that we have? Now, in as much as the Constitution provides for just limited number of taxes they can raise, property taxes, business fees, there are other opportunities for them, such as subnational borrowing, which is the 4th principle. They can get a guarantee from the national government. They can invite investors. And lastly, then you have the intergovernmental transfer, which is the 15% or whatnot. Now, if the president has doubled the minimum requirement for devolution to 30%, how is he fighting devolution? Now, when people take devolution to be a competition, it is not competition between the county or the national level.
You've written the book. Let's go back to the Mwananchi level. I'm following your line of reasoning somewhat closely.
Yes.
The debate of the moment is this perceived animosity, challenge between the Senate and the National Assembly.
Which is very unfortunate.
Right, okay, which is very unfortunate.
It is.
I'm going to explain. You're saying there are institutions in place which makes it the thing cannot go wrong. So even as we buy the daily newspapers, this is an imagined challenge between the Senate and the National Assembly. It's going to go away of its own. You shouldn't buy that paper for the front page.
There are teething problems, but I must say that some people are trying to use devolution to posture and play to the gallery, that they are indeed the gallant warriors supporting devolution, while there are others who are trying to, stifle it, which is not true. Devolution is not a competition, either between whether it is the Senate or the National Assembly. And what we saw earlier, and I was telling my colleagues in Parliament, that it should not be an issue of supremacy between the National Assembly and the Senate. Both are indeed required. If you look at our Constitution, there is no upper or lower house. Both are equal. It is like asking a bird, which wing is more important, your right wing or your left wing? The bird needs both wings to be able to fly, and we need both institutions. The Constitution in Article 96, Article 95 is very clear on the unique role that the National Assembly plays with respect to devolution, and the unique role that the Senate plays.
I'm saying that the Constitution and its stipulations are being usurped by reality. The Constitution says one thing, people are doing another thing.
That is why we need...
The other things that people are doing, let's simplify it, are bad things. When are they going to stop?
You see,
when are they going to stop? We talked about sell-by dates.
Yeah.
When are we going to wake up and say, gosh, we're now on track now, and we can look with hope to the future? 2
things. Devolution and the new dispensation we have depends on a set of institutions doing their work. So we need the transitional authority to ensure that the civic education, so that the people on the ground understand what is this devolution thing about, what do we expect, what do you expect the governor to do, what are our roles. That has not been done as well as it should be. Number 2, we have a reformed judiciary. The judiciary is an interpreter of laws. Where there is, some ambiguity, or there is a lacuna in the law, or a disagreement between institutions or between individuals, they should be the neutral arbiter. And I'm glad that the Senate went to court. I would have preferred that the Senate, the National Assembly, and the Executive went to court together, so that it is not an antagonistic kind of ruling, or process that is going to the Supreme Court. That we all went and said, you know what, this is a new baby we're handling. Let us go find out how it should be handled. Because I think majority of the people in the National Assembly, in the Senate, and in the Executive support devolution. Right. So let's not make it a competition between the institutions. It is like cutting your nose to spite your face. If the counties think...
Which leads me to my final question, because time will not allow. We talk about an economic vision 2030, an entrepreneurial vision 2030. What is your political vision 2030? 16 years from now, if everything goes according to plan, where should we be?
That takes me back to your earlier question on tribalism. I believe the young people have an opportunity of this country to finally shun this dragon, to slay this dragon of tribalism by coming together. And I think we have a role for it. In the next 16 years, what I see is a country where anybody from whichever part of this country can, live their lives peacefully, know that they can make something out of themselves, and they can be anything in this country. I look forward to a country where transformational and servant leadership is out of the day, where corruption is frowned upon in the same way as any crime such as rape is frowned upon, and a country where we look beyond our skin color and beyond our tribes to the content and to leadership that actually speaks to the issues that we're facing. That is my political vision 2030, and I think we are going to get there as a country. Finally, I'd like to say that we are 50 years from independence, and one thing we need to understand as a country is that 50 years ago, our fathers and forefathers fought and got physical emancipation. It is time for us to free our minds, and that is the agenda of our generation and our time. That we can shun the ceilings that we have put in our minds, that we understand that our problem is not the next community, that we do not look or we don't fall prey to the inferiority complex that we have had as an African continent, and that Africa can come together.
Johnson Sakaja, TNA National Chairman, thank you so much for coming on the JSO interview.
Thank you, Jason.